Good afternoon. Sorry, I know we're all hungry, but I just wanted to throw this question in. When I first heard about the event, when Josh told me, I was really excited that it's about social good. But as well, I'm not surprised that we're still talking about social reactiveness. And my point here is, I'm coming from the mindset of proactivity. Um, don't get me wrong, we definitely need emergency response, calamity response, all these things, and vigilance with regards to EPAL, all those things. But my question is, what can we really do about social good and balancing the Twitterverse with regards to the ranting, the negatives, which they're good naman as long as they want good results, but as well as doing positives like shit, social enterprise. I mean, it's not about government issues. It's not about the traffic or sustainability or about saving lives, but it's about sustainability and seeing what people can do, not just a voice, but what we can do. So what I was eager to learn today as well is what really social good can our connections do. I mean, it's a given. The connections are there. Look, we're all here. But how can we move forward with that? Given that we still have the emergency response, that's fantastic. I want to give you all one a hug and two medals. But beyond that, how do we move forward? And what tools do we have now to inspire people to do what they can to make a better country?
Thank you. Who wants to answer that? Chit?
Well, okay. What I've noticed, TJ, is that, and I know I could very well DM this to you, but but thank you for asking that. I think I've seen a lot of hashtag double F. Nah, I feel so social media savvy. Even Follow Friday. I always see Twitter names or handles get lumped together on Fridays. For example, Echo Store, Human Nature, Gawad Kalinga, Switch to Save, um, all these people, and people get curious. Like, why are all these people lumped together? To start with, I enjoy Twitter because I think one, you can unfollow somebody who's really mad at the world. I don't like, I like Twitter to relax and inform. I don't like it to stress me. So if people are ranting there and all, I really unfollow. If people curse, I unfollow. So I have unfollowed quite a lot. Anyway, they don't know naman, di ba? Well, somebody told me they don't. Anyway, uh, I think one is that when people put things together, because in Twitter you can actually uh, uh, you can actually group together the people of a certain like kindred spirit, as you said. So, for example, in Echo Store, I know that everyone who follows Echo Store seem to be connected to what we do. Otherwise, they will find our tweets boring. And then in the Philippine Coffee Board, we find that they're all coffee lovers. So anything about coffee, they tag us. Uh, if people find out, and really thank you to all the ones here who have 100,000 followers, once, let's say, TJ Manoto gets wind of your hashtag or what, right away you find more people following you. So it's very important that the influentials, those who are 100,000 and over, retweet the ones that are for social good. Okay, so we're not in a mutual admiration society here, TJ and me, but I've seen it work because I've introduced someone to him on Twitter. Sindavino was introduced to him because she wanted to do something good. She didn't know where to start. I said, here's his, go to Switch to Save and you'll find out. Okay, who wants to?
Okay, anyone else? How about Manny?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about what TJ was asking, but I'm looking in a different context. Let's say, for example, an obvious example is for social good. Look at what Multiply is doing, converting it from a purely social media and converting that on online store. I mean, if you look at Filipino entrepreneurs, they won't have the opportunity to build their own physical store. But something like this is social good. So I think it's very proactive. And with the emergence now of people having more comfort level buying online and us having more spending capability, people can organize and, for example, co-ops and gather them together and build an online store. I think that's still part of social good. So I'm looking at it in a different context.
I think Minette also wants to say something.
I think one thing we learn is it's a balance of what is online, what is virtual and what is in real life. And it's understanding the context that we operate in. So a lot of us are online, but the vast majority of Filipinos are not online. And it's understanding that today we spoke a lot about breaking barriers. I think we need to go beyond that and start building the bridges that mean that everybody can be within reach and everybody is part of that community that we want to help.
Okay, any other point? Yes, Carl.
I'm just curious. To those na lang who want to answer, you can say you don't want to. What's your take on the cybercrime law? Hi, Manolo. you can say no.
Okay, no. Okay. Um, I will say that this is precisely my point about our 19th century institutions and our 21st century expectations. Um, if you track back, and again, it's fairly difficult to track back, the process of how a law is made is opaque. Although officially transparent, there's nothing to prevent you from going to the Senate or the House to get their journal. But it is not online. It is difficult to know. You have to pay for the Xerox. That's a whole can of worms right there. And everyone in the media is very familiar with that can of worms about getting the official record. But technically it exists. As does the process is thoroughly documented. So you could, if you wanted to sit down, review precisely how the law was made, which member of Congress made the specific amendment and when, and who voted for it. Unfortunately, that doesn't do anyone in good. Everyone considered it. Everyone is, because not everyone will be reading every law that is churned out item by item, line by line. So you reach a point where a law that is justified on the point of many other benefits, or put it this way, problems that were wanted to be addressed. Pornography, human trafficking, security of your data. Remember, there's a counterpart law to this, which is the Data Privacy Act. And yet, one item, which seems to be a pretty late addition, has now become a cause of great concern. I was looking at how people were responding to this. And this is what I found interesting. Media has a consensus on this. But let us not confuse a media consensus with a public consensus. Just as there is a blogger consensus among political bloggers, but not among all bloggers or even all online citizens. And again, you are dealing with one where your voice is as important as anyone else's online, but in the real world, so to speak, is one out of a potential universe of how many millions of votes. That is the defining pass or fail for those who made that law possible. How you bridge that is the tricky part now. It was an even earlier debate, let's say, on the plagiarism issue. Ferocious firestorm online, but will it have any consequences in May 2013? And that is the sort of matatauhan ka portion of things. And that has always been the case even in 2005 and even earlier. That was the sort of calling the bluff of online, so to speak, if you're just talking about the language of reality. So long and short of it is, if it is important that the discussion is taking place, a consensus is emerging, it is not written in stone, and the more you are able to get others to join your point of view and find a sponsor who will amend that, and this is where your vote becomes important in 2013. If you settle on a candidate, or better yet, candidates, who make it part of their platform, you will get something done. And in a way that matters. Whether Malacanang, or the Senate President, or the House, or the Nacionalistas, Liberals, or any party wants it or not, because then you are calling the shots. But until that happens, we're not quite there. But the debate is the first step. And I think the debate must take two things into consideration. There are people of goodwill on all sides of the fence. There are people who may be inclined to share your concerns but are bound by their own concerns. How can you bridge it to turn them into an ally instead of an instinctive opponent? And this is the same thing I've been telling people about FOI, by the way. Remember, even within government, there are those who would be against it and there are those for it. Sometimes advocacy can be self-defeating. What happened to Ricky Carandang, for example, where all of a sudden there was a completely wrong reporting of what he said. I texted people in the FOI coalition. I said, you just hit us in the knees. Because then how can you be talking to an unreasonable opponent who is looking for every excuse to oppose, let's say, FOI? And they will tell you, oh, yung mga kaibigan mo dyan sa media, tinamang ginawa na sa boss mo. Kay Ricky Carandang, for example. And again, how do you tell a crazy legislator who, and I'm not naming names because there's a libel law. No, but you know, as a columnist, we've all had to live with that libel law since time immemorial. But let me point this out to you. How do you tell someone who is anxious to use a law as a way of control when you have a genuine case of someone whose reputation has suffered? Diba? You just A, hurt your cause. B, you boxed those who may be like-minded and supportive in a corner. And for what, diba? And this is where the online thing can be very counterproductive. So those are my frank views on the Cybersecurity Act. I think Kokoy and others had a very good point, which was there was also a lot of time. This has been percolating for 2 years. It shows you how the old institutions have a built-in advantage that online has not yet met, which is sustainability and consistent engagement. Someone like Tonyo, for example, will have been relentless about the costs of texting and that sort of thing for 10 years. And that's what gives him the credence. But I'm sure he would agree with me that every time there's a approaching or looming raising of rates, it's a new emergency because you have to build a new coalition. While those who may be pursuing other means have been doing it consistently in the background, day in and day out. So,
Manolo, do you consider it? Microphone, please.
Just the debate is constitutional or not constitutional. The one on freedom, on the libel, bringing it online.
I would put it. I'll just repeat some comments that I've heard lawyers make. The first is that there's a school of thought among legal circles that really the insertion of that provision is unnecessary because the law has always applied. That's one school of thought. I'm not saying it's a defining school of thought. Another school of thought says, no, there was in a sense, to their point of view, a loophole that had to be closed off by making it explicit. There's a third sort of complication here where the penalty for online is even harsher than in the old law, in the penal code itself. And the fourth complication is the view of media that it should be simply a matter of asking for compensation and not a criminal matter that leads to jail. But again, not a consensus that other people are strongly for libel law. No, so that is the thing sort of being worked out, and whether it will lead to a resolution in the Supreme Court, that might just sort of make any sort of just removing the thing or settling it even more difficult, and that's for advocates on either side to work out.